But the guys that set up the ring after the shows, we go on a road show 2 hours, and he'd take us all out to eat, and there'd be a good 20 of us. And he would pick up the bill, no questions asked, nobody pays for nothing. Like I said, without him and without another person out there named Joe Pavo, without him suggesting, I would have never got a chance to book. So, yeah, no,
Joe, I could say Joe Eugenio and ourselves, we've had differences in the past, but one thing that Joe Eugenio was, he was really generous.
Absolutely.
Generous.
If Joe Eugenio was still running shows, I would still be with him to this day. Without
now, would you go, if Joe Eugenio say tomorrow, I'm starting my promotion back up, I'm starting a different promotion, would you consider dropping what you have and maybe going back? Considering you can't have both?
It would be definitely something I'd have to think about. Without it, I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
Okay. But it would be something a little bit more professional than just taking off. I've only met the guy maybe twice. Nothing sit down, talk to, nothing like that. So let me just say my opinion is based strictly on what I've heard, what I've read, stuff like that. But someone who I think there's a lot more hype than what there really is. I've heard of some very unprofessional things that have been said and done by him, and then claiming to be the trainer, and he made a statement saying he was the best trainer in the United States. To my knowledge, he hasn't worked outside of New England. So once again, just my opinion, but I really think the guy's a little bit high on himself. I've seen things where he's taken shots at guys that took his spot at Ring of Honor, messages that he left and conversations that he had because someone took his spot that apparently he thought he deserved, and took shots of the same person when they left Top Rope. You can fill in the name if you'd like, but he did take some shots at this person after this person left and came to ACW on a microphone in the middle of a ring at the PAL. So I honestly, like I said, met him twice maybe, but from what I've heard, what I've read, I really don't have a high opinion of the Bob Evans. Steve Rickard, my opinion, was never good for this business. Steve Rickard is the reason I did not finish my career in, YPW or Top Rope, whatever you want to call it. Despite, once again, people think it's a personal grudge that I have with him. It's not. It's a business grudge that I have with him. I never liked the way he treated people. Little known fact, me and Steve actually used to be very close when I first started in South Coast. I remember one year he actually gave me a gift card. I forgot how much it was, but it was for Christmas. It was me, Johnny Angel, Ariel, and Tom Getty, the ref, because we had done every show that year. So personal, it's not a personal issue I have with Steve. It's just I am not a fan of the way he operates business. I'm not a fan of the way he treats people. Steve runs his business on a personal level. He makes personal decisions. If he doesn't like you or doesn't like something you do, that is a decision he will make into a business decision. That is not how I work. If I could hate your guts, but if you bring something to the table, then you're going to be a part of the product. So once again, it's a differing aspect that we have, and it's how we run a business. It's not a personal decision. I can tell you a little known fact, maybe 2 summers ago, he was at a birthday party for my grandfather, who was a mutual, he was in Yankee and stuff like that. Steve Rickard was there, and I shook Steve Rickard's hand. Everybody's going to go, ooh, he shook Steve Rickard's hand. Like I said, it's not personal, it's business. People have gone on rants on message boards and said in locker rooms, I was actually there. And I can tell you most of the people that are talking about it probably weren't there, because I can tell you there was less than 20 people in the crowd and you're 15 guys in the locker room. So not a lot of guys were there, so not a lot of guys should really be talking about it being firsthand. Not only was I there, but I was also the person that brought Davey Cash there. Once again, a very little known fact. I got him the booking that night. He met me at my house. We drove up to the show. I was already booked on the show. We drove up. This was after I left Yankee. Drove up to the show, and that's when he was scheduled. He was put on the show by the booker, and a lot of rumors have been out there about the state that Davey Cash was in, whether he was intoxicated, whether he was high, and I can put my reputation, my name, and everything else on the line and tell you that, in my own opinion, he was not. That happened as an accident. It was not anyone's fault, but I can tell you I was there, I saw it, and like we talked about before with Davey Cash, we've since split company in ACW, differences in opinion, so it'd be very easy for me to come on here and lie about that, but I can tell you quite honestly, was not Davey Cash's fault, was not Spider's fault. Nobody was intoxicated, nobody was high. My own opinion, and I was talking with Dan right before the match, and I sat at the curtain no less than 10 feet away watching it because I wanted to see the match, obviously. My opinion is Highlight went for a high cross over the top. Dan was supposed to catch him. There was a speaker less than a foot away. My own opinion is possibly, and this is just my opinion, is maybe Dan saw that, changed how he was going to fall, and unfortunately the blow landed on his head, and that's what happened. He ruptured his head, and it's something I'll never forget. It made me it made me stop wrestling for a while. I changed my mind since then, but it's something that I've carried a little bit of guilt myself. I mean, granted, I don't know what Davey Cash carries around because that's a lot more, but I carry around a little bit for being there and for having bringing Davey to the show. But once again, like I said, I will state my name and everything on it that was an accident. So people, give up the controversy, give up, he was high, he was drunk. It was an accident. I was there. So. Probably as close to an old school wrestler as a new school wrestler can get. Right down from the trunks to the tassels on the boots. He's as close to old school as a new school guy can get. You can put him up against a Baker and Ashworth, and he fits right in. But like I said, everywhere from the trunks to the boots to to the robe. Like I said, he's an old school wrestler at a new school time. But I think that's what people notice. People that are fans of old school, he's a traditional heel. He's an old school heel, and that's the first thing I think of. Like I said, an old school talent. Guy that I was there from the first day he walked in. Kid from Plymouth, very quiet kid, much like Levesque. Right from the beginning, very quiet, very humble, and kind of came up through the rankings.
Got tons of charisma though.
Yeah, I'd book that match tomorrow, but unfortunately he's the TRP champion, and those guys can't work for us.
Now, let me ask you a question though. Why was it, not that you have any notice on this though, but Mike Bennett was advertised for a Lethal Pro Wrestling event, but yet he can't work for you? It's not something on your end, it's something from his own perspective? Well,
actually the thing is the Lethal, to my knowledge, the LPW show he didn't end up working. I mean, you can draw your own conclusion there. He's still at Top Rope and still the champion, so say what you want about it, but I would have no problem putting him in an ACW ring at all.